We're going to start today building a scene that's got two different layers, at least two different layers, that depicts a sports event. So, for example, this scene shows a football going through goalpost. Very exciting. So there's two layers. Actually, this one's got three, and I'll show you how to build that for your next project. Starting with Adobe Animate, make sure you get yourself a new HTML5 canvas right here. And on their background layer is just going to be here, layer 1. I'm going to rename layer 1. I'm going to double click it and call it background. And on that layer, I'm going to use the drawing tools and I'm going to build myself a background picture. Now, the first thing I want to do is set the stage color. So the background color can be any number of things. If you want to set it to green grass, want to set it to blue sky, whatever you think. I'm going to set my background to blue sky. And then I'm going to draw a rectangle, my rectangle tool, and that rectangle is going to be the green grass. So I'm going to get a green stroke, a green fill, and I'm going to just draw this rectangle down here at the bottom. If you find you didn't draw it quite right, you know that you've got tools. This is a free transform tool. It's the third one down. You can make it a little bigger, however you want to do it, move it around, so on. All you're trying to do right now is draw the scene. So I'm going to use some of my other drawing tools. I'm going to use this oval and I'm going to draw a sun in the sky. You can draw clouds, you can draw all sorts of things. My sunshine is going to be over here. Oh, it's going to be a beautiful day. Let's say I wanted to make that kind of have a little strange outline about it. You've got stroke weight you can do here, how fat the line is. You've got a different stroke color you can put around it. And you can also change the style right here. You can tell it to have this ragged edge, or you can tell it to have, what the heck is that called? A stippled edge, or a hatched edge. However you think the sun ought to look in your sky. I thought that was a particularly pretty sunshine. And when I made my clouds in my example, I used the oval tool again, but I've got some different things going on here. I think I used a stippled edge on that. And I drew a bunch of different circles, and that made clouds in my sky. So I'm going to go ahead and finish drawing that piece real quick. I'm going to put my film on pause while I do it. Anyhow, I've got a sun and I've got a cloud. I'm going to get this line tool next, because next I'd like to draw a goalpost. Remember, this is my example. Got a lovely goalpost right here. My goalpost is going to be white or yellow or something that's really bright that'll show up. So I'm going to pick yellow, and I've got no fill on that because there is no fill color. It's just going to be the line. Now my line needs to be solid, and let's see how big this is. Might be a little large, so I'm going to hit Control Z and undo that. Right now it's a 27.4 point line. We'll pull that down to there. Let's see what happens. That happens when I do this. If I hold the Shift key, it'll actually go perfectly straight up and down. Perfectly horizontal, perfectly vertical, or perfect 45-degree angle with the Shift key, just like it was when I used the Shift key in Adobe Illustrator, if you remember that. This is kind of a tricky thing to get just right, and I'm going to show you a good shortcut in just a minute. That's a goalpost, but you see how it's slightly crooked. I'm going to hit Control Z 3 times and get rid of that and show you my neat trick. Taking the rectangle tool, making sure there's no fill in it, I can draw a rectangle. And then taking my black arrow, my selection tool, I can grab just the top part of that. You see how only the top is selected? I was trying to zoom in. I apologize. Let me try to zoom in a little better. Only the top part is selected. See? Not selected, selected. If I select just the top part and hit delete or backspace on my keyboard, it does that. So that's a pretty neat trick. And now I've got this perfect goalpost. Let me fit that back in the window. And if it's not quite in the right spot, what you can do is you can double click every darn thing, and you can just move it over with the arrow keys. Perfectly fine. So this is my background. What I'm going to do with my background is I'm going to lock that for the time being. I haven't drawn the ball yet, and I don't want to draw the ball in the background because the ball is going to have to move and the background is going to have to stay put. So on the second layer, and I apologize, I don't see my thing to make a new layer here. There it is. It trailed off the bottom. That's the thing to make a new layer. So you can do a new layer any number of ways. You can go to Insert, Timeline, and get a new layer here, or you can click this little page turn icon, which for some reason I had below the part where it was recording. So new layer, and that layer is going to be my football. On that layer, I'm going to use my tools and draw a football. And I'm going to zoom in pretty hard on what I'm doing because that football is going to be pretty detailed. I'm going to get pretty meticulous about doing it. So I'll put it over here where it's going to begin its journey. And I'm going to pick out my oval tool and pick out my football color. That looks pretty close. And start by drawing an oval. Since I have drawn this with the oval tool, I'm going to use the white arrow, which is the direct selection tool right there, or sub-selection tool is what they're calling it here. And you can actually see the anchor points. If you remember from last semester, good old anchor points, if you click on one of these anchor points, you can see handles. Sounding familiar, isn't it? From way back when we did Illustrator. And you can move the handles around. So remember, if you hold down the Alt key, you can move just one handle. Move this one handle in. You can move this handle. And what you can do, and it doesn't have to be perfect, my gosh. If you just want to draw a round ball, that's fine too. But you can move these handles around, and I'm going to pause my video playback here. I'm going to pause my recording rather, and let myself get my handles together. Okay, so maybe it's not my best work, but it'll do for the time being. If you wanted to put the laces on the football, I'm going to go ahead and use my line tool again, but I'm going to switch my color to white. And I'm going to make my lines really, my lines a little smaller than this. And maybe, oh, that'll do the trick. That's beautiful. It's going to be the best football ever. Point being, you've got it all together. What you want to do is select the whole thing. Now, because it's the only thing on the layer, if you hit Control A, it should select just the football. So I'm on this layer, I hit Control A. You see how nothing else gets selected. And if I zoom myself in right here on this football, you'll see it is selected. It's definitely like when it's selected, it looks grainy like that. And when it's not selected, it looks normal. So when it's the only thing selected, I can drag around it or I can hit Control A. I'm going to convert it to a symbol. And the reason I want to convert it to a symbol is so that it stays intact, that the lines don't move separately from the ball or the stroke around the outside doesn't move separately from the fill on the inside. We'll get more into symbols in later projects, but the easiest thing in the whole world to do is to convert it to a symbol this way. Go to Modify and tell it to convert to symbol. When you convert something that already exists into a symbol, I'm just going to call this a ball. That's what the name of it is. And instead of making it a button, I'm going to make it a graphic. And again, we'll get more into what makes different symbols special later on here. Just call it a graphic and we'll be happy. If you say OK to this, then what we're going to do now is actually, you're going to see it in the library. There's properties here. There's the library here. And the library is where your symbols are. The brilliant thing about the library is now that you've got a symbol in there, you could pull out so many iterations of that symbol, it would drive you crazy. You only need one, but that's a great feature of the library. Now you'll notice down here in the timeline that I only have one frame for each of these layers. I need them both to last a lot longer, so let's just assume that you'd like about a 100-frame movie. I'm going to go to frame 100. In each layer, there's the football layer, frame 100 in the background layer. And in each of those layers, I'm going to create a keyframe at frame 100. So there's right-click, insert a keyframe, and then right-click and insert a keyframe. You see how when I inserted that first keyframe, the only thing that was on my whole stage was the ball, because that's the only thing that was on that layer. When I inserted that second keyframe, the background came along. Now if I hit Enter on my keyboard It plays 100 frames of incredibly boring animation. In fact, nothing moves. That's how boring that animation is. What I want to do is at frame 100, so that's the keyframe right there, of the football layer, I want to take my selection tool and I want to move the ball to its final position. Let's say I would like it to end here. Now what I want to do is tween that. So I'm going to select the word football here, which gets the entire layer highlighted. You see that? Then I'm going to go to insert and tell it to create a classic tween. When I do that, I play it back, it goes exactly where I told it to go. But it will not curve, it goes in a straight line. So what I need to do is add a few more keyframes if I want the trajectory of this thing to curve. About halfway through, maybe it kind of hits a pinnacle here. So I'm going to insert a keyframe and make it go up a little. Now what happens? It goes up, and then it goes straight across. But I didn't win. What if I wanted this ball to score? I'm going to go back to my background layer and unlock it, because what I'd like to do is take this piece, remember it crosses that line, take this piece and I want to put it on a layer in front of the layer the ball is on. If I put the whole background layer above the football, then, well, nothing really works correctly. So I'm not going to do that. The background layer stays behind everything. But what I'd like to do is on the background layer, I'm going to take a copy of this piece. I'm just going to copy this one piece. You don't have to do this. It depends on which sport you choose, but I wanted you to know. So this piece right here, I'm just selecting that one chunk and I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to make a new layer above the football layer. Whatever you want to call it, I'm just going to call it top because it's the top layer. When I made this new layer, you'll notice how it defaulted to having 100 frames. That's perfect. What I want to do on this layer, and I've got this layer selected, is I'm going to go to edit and I'm going to tell it to paste in place. It just stuck a copy of that post right there. Now my football is actually going to score. It's the difference, man, between making the point and not making the point, right? So there it goes. And it goes up. Kind of arcs, there it goes, straight across, and it's good. What you do when you're finished is you want to preview this. If you hit Control and, Control and the Enter key, or if you go to Control and say play, it will pull this up in a different window. So Control Enter key or hit play right here. Oh, excuse me, Control play. Oh my goodness. Control test, I'm sorry. That brings it up in a window like this. And you can see this brilliant sports movie. So what I'm looking for with this project grade is, did you have a background? Does the background stay put? Do you have some sort of ball or sports equipment that needs to move? Does the sports equipment move? Did you create a scene of sports of some kind? So let's get that done. And that's going to be a pretty good grade for you today. Thanks a lot.